cancel culture has many victims. And the thing about cancel culture is that it's like a virus. Once someone with a big enough voice sends hate in your direction, it opens up the floodgates. Content creators are some of the most influential people on the planet, and for some, it sounds like a dream job. Fans screaming your name, acquiring millions or even billions of views, and more money than you even know what to do with. But with millions of eyes watching you, not everything is so easy. Imagine a world of having your every move picked apart, not being able to go to the grocery store without the paparazzi cameras in your face, and constant fear that everyone around you, even your closest friends, are trying to take advantage of you. A whole world of people waiting for you to make one mistake, and that is when they pounce.
David Dobrik. David Dobrik.
David Dobrik.
David Dobrik, widely known as one of the greatest YouTubers of all time, with millions of followers, billions of views, and an influence that is matched by very few. For the last few years, David has been on the receiving end of a myriad of serious allegations, which have left his fans and haters alike wondering exactly where things went wrong. How does one of the most beloved people on the planet suddenly become the target of such immense hate at such a young age for making mistakes that you and I would probably make 99 out of 100 times? And after watching 101 videos about why David should be canceled, I've decided it's time to look at things from a different angle. What actually happened? Why was a kid in his early 20s condemned to social media hell for the rest of his life? Today, I want to talk about David Dobrik and why we should probably uncancel him. Before I share my exact thoughts on the situation, I want to give a little bit of background as to how David blew up in the first place. David Dobrik was born on July 23rd in 1996 in Košice, Slovakia, but he and his family didn't stay there for long. When he was just 6 years old, David and his entire family moved over from Slovakia to a small town near Chicago called Vernon Hills, Illinois. This was obviously a huge change, but according to David, he doesn't seem to remember the move much at all. He had a pretty classic American childhood where he went to school, played tennis, and then started to make fun little videos on a platform called Vine.
I was very small on Vine. I was posting like once a month. I was getting brand deals for like $50 to $100 like here and there.
But this wasn't a career at the time.
No.
We'll talk more about Vine later, but first we need to go over one key point that changed David's life: graduating high school in 2014. Because after David got his diploma, his parents gave him an ultimatum.
Yeah, their ultimatum was either go to college or I move out. So I moved out.
David, who had aspirations other than college, got a job at a retirement home so that he could save up to move out of his house. And for some reason, when choosing places to go, David picked the most expensive place in the country, Los Angeles.
I worked at a retirement home.
Okay.
And I think I worked there for like 8 months to a year.
Okay.
In the retirement home, you had to set up a separate account to actually collect your money. Like
Okay.
you had to go to a separate bank where all the money was like piled into. And I never touched the money. For the 8 months of the year, I never touched it.
How did you have money to go to the movies or buy lunch?
I mean, I didn't. If I had to go buy lunch, I would go to the Wendy's like dollar menu, and you
Okay.
can get like a double stack for $1 at the time, and it was a great deal. So I did that, and I just borrowed like my parents' money, or I would just take coins around the house, and I would
Okay.
just go buy food. But yeah, and I didn't touch that money until the day I was leaving for LA, and I had $1,600.
And while David was excited for his move, he was going halfway across the country with barely enough money to make rent for a month. So if David wanted to stay in Los Angeles, he would have to figure out how he was gonna make some money. And luckily, he did so pretty quickly. He found some small success while doing faceless accounts on Vine.
I was running accounts on Vine that weren't under my name. There was like a Top Sports or something, and I would like upload sport clips.
Okay.
And I would sell revines on that. So it's like a super like, I'm very creative, but then I'm also like little business side to me that's like not that businessy, but like I like money. So yeah, so I would have like a bunch of different theme pages, they were called.
Okay.
And I would just sell revines on those pages. So they had like 500,000 followers each, and I'd make like $60 a day by revining other brands.
Okay.
And that's what kept me afloat.
But as you internet geeks know, Vine was going downhill fast, and Viners everywhere realized that they needed to somehow transfer their large followings onto a new social media platform. And a lot of those creators chose a home right here on YouTube. David, on the other hand, wasn't exactly thinking about which platform would hold him in the future. He knew that something would work out and he could make content somewhere. But what he truly needed was inspiration. inspiration. And that inspiration came in the form of Liza Koshy. For those of you who don't know, David met Liza at the end of the year 2015. She was a fellow Viner who had already made the jump to YouTube. And most of these other Viners who quickly jumped to YouTube tried to start elaborate sketch channels with big sets. But Liza did the much cheaper and arguably more entertaining option, which was vlogging.
It's driving with Liza, baby. Are you in or are you out?
David is on record as saying that Liza's content is actually what gave him the idea to start making vlogs.
And then I met Liza, and she was filming a vlog. I just really liked the fact that it was just like this small camera, and you can record your entire day.
Yeah.
Because like, this is so cool. You could just do whatever you want
Yep.
with this small camera, and people see it.
So on July 30th of 2015, David would upload his first ever vlog to YouTube.
This is it. This is my first vlog. I don't know how long this is gonna last, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna try vlogging maybe every other day, every day. Who knows? But I'm gonna do it. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hey, this is my first vlog, man.
Fuck off.
All right, let's just start vlogging. What a dick.
David took advantage of his over 1 million followers on Vine by collaborating with other big creators. This group of internet famous friends who would all come together to make vlogs would become affectionately known as the Vlog Squad.
So yeah, I just filmed my first vlog, and I think the reason it worked is because I wasn't trying to make it work.
What was the vlog at the time?
Literally just me hanging out with my friends. It was so simple, so horrible. There's nothing to it, but I was doing it purely for enjoyment, and there was no other purpose to it. I did not feel at all like I needed to do it.
Yep.
And I think that's why it worked.
Over the years, David's following on YouTube would grow to a point where it would make his Vine followers look minuscule. His main channel now sits at 17.4 million subscribers. A majority of this success was from him setting himself apart from other vloggers and creators. But at the peak of his success, we would see David end up in some controversies that would pretty much end his career. In 2021, the Dobrik empire would start to show some dangerous cracks. A bunch of former members of the Vlog Squad would come out and speak against David and his team. On February 6th of 2021, Big Nick, a former member of the Vlog Squad, would speak on the H3 podcast, calling the Vlog Squad a cult.
It is kind of like a cult, yeah. It's like a high school vibe, very cultish like vibe.
And unfortunately for David, things would only get worse from here, because Big Nick's testimony on the H3 podcast was just the tip of the iceberg. It seemed that a lot of the ex-Vlog Squad members would gain confidence from Nick sharing his story to the point where they wanted to share their own. Seth, Francois, and Trisha Paytas, both former Vlog Squad members, came out with stories about so-called pranks that they said were insanely inappropriate. And if that wasn't enough, on March 16th of 2021, Business Insider would publish an article with a provocative title that will get me demonetized here on YouTube. And if you can't tell what four-letter word was blurred out in that title, well, maybe after I explain the situation, it will become more clear. It involved a party, girls who were too young to drink, and a dubious understanding of consent by a man named Dirty Dom. I won't go too much further into details, but trust me, it was not a good look for Dom. At this point, Business Insider giving their opinion was too much for David to ignore, so he would post a 2-minute video titled Let's Talk, and this wouldn't appear on his main channel, but on his second channel.
Consent is something that's super important to me. Whether I'm shooting with a friend or shooting with a stranger, I always make sure that whatever the video I'm putting out, I have the approval from that person.
In this video, David's apology is relatively generalized. He does, however, directly apologize to Seth, but does not name any other members of the Vlog Squad. Unfortunately for David, the drama would not end with his apology, because on March 21st, the next member of the Vlog Squad to speak out would be a big one. Jeff Wittek, who was a staple in the squad, posted a video about the entire situation with David. He wanted to distance himself from the Business Insider article that accused him of buying alcohol for the underage girls that Dom then allegedly assaulted. While the video isn't still up now, the general sentiment is that he tried to separate himself from the craziness of the parties, and any wrongdoing that he might have had, he apologized for. He also mentioned something else that would make David's situation in the public eye by a lot worse. Jeff was seriously injured during the filming of one of David's videos, but everybody knew that already. So why was it finally being brought up now? I'll touch back on that in a second, because before I dive into why exactly I think we shouldn't cancel David despite everything I just said, I want to talk about some of the ramifications and consequences of these accusations against David. First off, a bunch of huge sponsors like his main sponsor SeatGeek, as well as the Dollar Shave Club, Chipotle, and many others would drop David and sever ties with him in the coming weeks. On top of that, David, under the stress of everything that was going on, started to delete some of the older videos on his channel, losing over 66 million views worth of videos in a single day. All of these developments led to David releasing a longer apology video on March 23rd of 2021. This time, the apology was on his main channel, and it was a lot longer, as I already mentioned. On top of that, David was crying. Clearly, he was incredibly emotional about everything that was going on. David would also acknowledge that the last apology wasn't enough and would go as far as to calling it bad, so he went into more detail about all of the accusations.
It's so important to hold yourself accountable. And I think with this situation, there's a lot I can look at and there's a lot I can learn from, but there's a lot of mistakes that I made. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for everybody I've let down. I'm sorry to my family, and I'm sorry to my friends that I've embarrassed, and that this won't happen again.
Towards the end of this video, David announced that he would be taking a break from social media while he restructures his team behind the scenes. However, during this break, just 1 month later, Jeff Wittek would release a documentary about the situation with David titled "Don't Try This at Home." This would go into the details about his injury and how it happened. For those of you that aren't familiar with the story, the gist of the situation is that Jeff got injured while doing a stunt for one of the vlogs back in June of 2020. Essentially, David had drove out an excavator into the middle of a lake, attached a rope to the end of it, and offered to spin people around in circles. Corinna was the first one up on the giant construction vehicle, and after spinning around just a couple of times, she wanted to get down because she felt it was too scary. However, even after Corinna said that she didn't feel comfortable doing it, Jeff would make the decision to try it out next. And this is when Jeff's tragedy struck. He slammed into the side of the excavator, shattering his skull in 9 places. On top of that, he tore ligaments in his leg, broke both his hip and his foot, and almost went completely blind in his eye. While the situation was bad and Jeff was seriously injured, for at least the year after the situation had gone down, Jeff would actually go out of his way to protect and defend David. However, this all changed when Jeff had dropped his documentary, essentially flipping the tables on David.
I've been protecting this guy for so long, and there's so much more to the story than just him not texting me for a week after I had such a drastic surgery.
Instead of acknowledging anything that Jeff had said, David decided it was best for him to stay quiet until his social media break would end 2 months later. Here, he would upload another vlog titled "Surprising My Friends."
This is crazy. Look at you.
You're vlogging?
Oh, just a little bit, bro. You look like you need it. You look like you need me to vlog.
Come on in.
The internet was relatively split over this situation. While some people were a little bit confused how his normal vlogs could return considering everything that had happened, most of his core fan base seemed to return and everything was going back to normal. However, drama would only get worse a year later when Jeff released an episode of his podcast titled "Dear David." And let's just say that Jeff was no longer interested in protecting his previous friend, David Dobrik.
It feels good to cut bad people out of your life, and it took a while to see it. I don't blame anybody out there if you're dealing with a scumbag. I felt like this guy was a fucking scumbag at times. When people come around, people change. I, for the longest time, gave him the benefit of the doubt that he would come along and change.
All this situation there would just give you clarity, you know? It usually takes things like this.
It's ironic that I fucking had an eye injury, but now I see clearer than ever.
Yeah.
David would then respond on his podcast with Jason Nash, which Jeff did not appreciate, so he would make a whole response podcast, and it ends with him threatening David in a lawsuit.
Like I said, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about this, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you, Jeff.
I'm so sorry that this happened to you, Jeff.
I appreciate it, Dave. After the last hour of slander, yeah, I'm not gonna beat you up anymore. I'm just gonna take this the right way, the smart way, and just let the courts decide, you know? Making a lot of statements here that are very untrue, that are so easy to disprove. So let's just let the courts decide, and then you'll have to sign a paper that says, yeah, this was a lie, and I'm guilty of this and this and that, and we can go that route about it, because let's be honest, I get no points for beating you up, and again, I'm an adult. That's not how I handle my situations anymore.
With all of this drama going on, David was still uploading vlogs. That is until March 29th of 2022, which would seem to be David's last vlog ever. After the rather emotional vlog that took place on March 29th, we wouldn't see David upload to his main channel for another 2 years. And although we thought David would never post again, he did come back with a vlog that lasted 14 minutes, which for those of you that know David, is almost 4 times as long as his regular vlogs. This would be titled Surprising Friends with Body Transformation, where David would show that he took the 2 years off to absolutely shred up his body and get a new dynamic physique.
I cannot believe you have like a full 6-pack.
Me neither.
But after disappearing for 2 years, and with all of these allegations and accusations still in the near past, would the internet forgive David? It didn't seem like it.
David Dobrik, the guy with the annoying laugh. Nothing is ever that funny.
Well, across his multiple scandals of manipulating his friends, an essay scandal that happened under his watch, and almost causing his friend to die, David was essentially forced to leave YouTube and completely start new somewhere else.
David Dobrik has decided to return to YouTube after taking a near 3-year break from posting. He stopped posting vlogs, he quit his joint podcast with Jason Nash, and after the first year went by, most people assumed he was done for good. Well, he's fully back now, and we have a lot to discuss.
So yeah, 2021 and 2022 were not the best years for David. After losing a ton of sponsorships, a lot of friends, and even more viewers, it wasn't looking so great for the young icon. But why exactly did David lose all of these viewers? See, if you look at everything that I just said, back to back to back, it doesn't look so good for David. But we're essentially looking at all of his worst moments under a microscope. And that idea, which I mentioned in the intro of this video, of everybody looking at content creators like they're basically not human, is the main point of the argument that I'm going to be making. This video on David isn't really just about David. It's about a wider problem called cancel culture. As I'm sure many of you are familiar with, on the internet, nothing goes away. And because of that, once you put something out there, it's up forever for hundreds of thousands or millions or even billions of people to scrutinize with a fine-tooth comb. Now look, I am not going to excuse what David did. And in fact, in just a moment, I'm going to delve deeper into these specific situations that have been brought up over and over again. But before we do that, I want to offer a perspective that you probably haven't heard in these other videos that have talked about David. We're currently in the year 2025, and David is almost 30 years old, and more specifically, he's 28. Now, if you remember, I showed you David's first vlog, which was over 9 years ago. That means at the very best, David was 19 years old when he started vlogging. And now I'm sure a lot of younger people will see this video, but I want to invite anybody over the age of 20 to think about some of the actions that you took when you were a teenager. I'm sure if all of those were blasted on social media, a few of you would be canceled too. Now, I want to reiterate, this isn't me excusing anything that David did. It's just simply offering a perspective that I think a lot of us forget about. Content creators are humans, and humans make mistakes. And now I'm going to talk a little bit more about those specific mistakes, starting with the situation with Dirty Dom. Like I said before, I can't fully comment on the details of the Dirty Dom situation because I don't want to get my video restricted. However, he is dealing with serious accusations of SA. And because I wasn't there, I won't be commenting on these as surefire facts, rather just addressing the accusations as if they were true. Now, if the allegations allegations against Dom are true, which most people seem to believe, then I think he deserves to be canceled for sure. In fact, I think he deserves worse than that. He should probably rot in a jail cell. That being said, we have to talk about somebody other than Dom in this situation, and that is David. After all, this video is about why we should uncancel him. In my opinion, way too much of the blame for this situation has been put on David for the last few years. Most of the accusations involving this situation when it comes to David are the fact that he was breeding a culture where people could do whatever they wanted for the vlog and get away with it. Plus, people were upset that after the girl came forward and discussed what happened with Dom, the video wasn't taken down right away. Now, I'm not going to repeat everything that David said in his apology, but he already has addressed this and said that he does regret certain things that happened in this situation with Dom. And with all of that being said, I do want to reiterate, I understand that this is David's set, but when your set is also your everyday life, things can become incredibly blurry. And when you're a young 20-year-old trying to make it on YouTube, YouTube becomes your life. So for David, recording everyday events was just part of how he made the best content in the world. I think generally speaking, over time, people have realized that the Dom situation was in fact Dom's situation and not necessarily David's fault. However, the other accusations that David faced were that he had an unsafe working environment, and most of these accusations were fueled by the situation with Jeff Wittek. I already mentioned that earlier in the video, Jeff did sustain a serious injury while shooting with David. Before we go into my opinions on everything that's happened since then, I want to be very clear about something. David's set is his responsibility to keep safe. There is no reason that Jeff should have been put in a situation where he could possibly be hurt. With all of that being said, I do think that David isn't the only person to blame here. At the end of the day, Jeff is a grown adult, and he did make a decision to get onto that crane. I don't want to sound like I don't have a heart or that I'm blaming Jeff for the situation. All I'm saying is that you had two consenting adults trying to make a kick-ass video, and things got way out of hand. If this was David's idea, which it seems like it was, then he definitely shares more of the blame than Jeff for even putting anyone in a situation to have to decide whether or not they would want to do that. But like I said, Jeff did ultimately make the decision to go on it.
I saw Corinna swing on it a little bit like that, and then I was like, oh yeah, this looks fun. Just swinging like a rope swing attached to a tree, not whipping the fucking thing around 60 miles per hour. I agree. I hopped on the rope to fucking do the first part, which was just a simple, like a fucking rope swing off a tree. You just swing back and forth. It's a swing.
When the
not while the fucking thing is swinging fast. That was never discussed. That was completely on you.
Honestly, I think that much of the scrutiny that David has gotten didn't actually come from the event itself. It came from how he handled it afterwards. Jeff came forward saying that David had only paid for some of his medical treatments and didn't want to pay for any more. But it seems like that might not be exactly true. After the drama continued to progress, Jeff and David stopped talking to each other. And according to David's team, after they continuously reached out to Jeff to continue covering his medical costs, Jeff wanted absolutely nothing to do with them.
I don't love the fact that he's going around saying I don't pay for surgeries. Like, that fucking hurts. Like, I want to help him. I really, truly do. Yeah. And like, he still has my word. Like I told him that I pay for a surgery. He can still, and the reason we haven't been paying for a surgery, I don't know if it's his assistant's fault or Jeff just told him to back off from us, but like, I don't handle that stuff more. I just give approval to spend that, whatever. Yeah. But like, Natalie has asked multiple times, like, loop us into all these surgeries, and we're just not getting looped into anything. And then we're blindsided when he goes to another surgery.
Once again, I do think that David should cover all of Jeff's medical costs, but if Jeff doesn't want to accept David's money, he can't exactly use that as a piece in his chess game to frame David as a monster. Now, these were just two of the biggest accusations that came out, but I brought these up as a greater example. Not everything you see or read is true. I mean, there are people that will tell you that David was the one that committed SA, not Dom, because people will half read headlines. On top of that, if you had listened listened to what Jeff had said about David not paying for his medical treatments, you would have missed out on important context that they actually tried to continue doing it. I don't think we take the time to realize that David has done a lot of good for a ton of people. During COVID, David did a lot of work to help cheer up people in his community while remaining safe. On top of that, he has bolstered the careers of countless individuals that have basically made their name off of David's back. And perhaps more importantly than all of that, David has made every single one of us laugh and smile and even cry. These are all things that I think should be taken into account when you judge a person's character. If you're going to look at somebody's mistakes, why would you also not look at the things that they've done on purpose, like grow a community that is widely positive and has impacted a lot of people's lives? For those of you that haven't been keeping up with David, I'll wrap up the video by telling you what he's doing now. Since 2022, he's only posted that one update vlog a couple of months ago, but he is back doing his podcast with Jason Nash, and on top of that, David has been posting on Snapchat all the time, keeping you up to date with his daily life and that of the Vlog Squad members that he still hangs out with. So it's up to David whether or not he's gonna come back to YouTube full time. Honestly, I don't think he's going to after everything that has happened, but I really wish he would, because I, for one, miss David's vlogs more than anything else on the platform. Thank you guys for watching my first ever video on this brand new channel. If you stayed around to the end of the video, thank you so much for the support. I will be making more videos just like this, so comment down below who else you want to hear about. Remember to stay positive. Everything's gonna be okay. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!